Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian Dawn Brodey talks about why she loves whiskey.
Scientifically, your body recognizes the first time that you feel the burn of alcohol, but then feel the sort of chill of the alcohol feeling. Your body registers that, and the next time that you drink alcohol and it feels the burn, your body's like, oh, but hang on, you're about to get that good feeling. And so your body literally learns to like alcohol. I salivate for it like it's a cookie.
Today on the show, comedian Dawn Brodey from the HILF Podcast talks about why she loves whiskey. Stay close.
Hey, it's Dawn Brodey, and you are listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show or a new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. I hope you guys had a chance to listen to Angela Johnson-Reyes last week. Angela Johnson-Reyes is a comedian who is she's such a powerhouse. Do you know Angela by any chance, Dawn?
No, I've never met her.
Her story was about the year that changed her life, which for her was 2007. That's the year my daughter was born, so that year changed my life too. But for her, it was because she had a YouTube video go viral. And it was one of these things where, but by no means did she get famous overnight. She's worked her ass off. All of a sudden, everything came together in 2007 for her. And it's a really good story. And Angela has a great book out right now as well called Who Do You Think I Am? So check that out as well. Angela Johnson-Reyes, you got to check her out last week, you guys. But not today. Don't go anywhere today, because today I'm here with another very talented comedian who has been on the show before. Her name is Dawn Brodey. The last time you were on the show, Dawn, you talked about how you lived on a houseboat, like full on, for over a year.
9 years. 9 years I lived on a boat.
You lived on a boat for 9 years?
I lived on 2 different boats over the course of 9 years. Yeah, I lived on a 1974 fiberglass hull houseboat for 4 or 5 years, and then I lived on a steel-hulled custom 2-story riverboat that I remodeled from hull to stern, bow to stern for another 3.
The riverboat is the one I'm just blown away with. When I think about just the danger involved in a boat, you know what I mean? Like the metal, the I don't know, nails, are they screws? It just seems all very, very dangerous. And there's something called a pump room, and then there's like you could drown. I mean, just a boat. There's nobody to help you. You're on a vessel. Good luck.
Oh, and girl, if you would like to add just one more layer of danger on that, I lived on this boat on the Mississippi River in St. Paul, Minnesota, where you can freeze to death and drown at the same time.
Now, that's the headlands of the Mississippi, right?
The headwaters, yeah. The headwaters are up in Itasca, Minnesota, so it does have to go. A short distance before it gets to Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is the Twin Cities, and that's where there's the first lock. On the river, and it goes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, baby.
Unbelievable. Yeah, when you were on the show, I really enjoyed learning about all of the locks and all the way, because I didn't know anything about that. So that was super interesting. And now on today's show, you bring forth the topic, why I love whiskey. And so, oh my God, you're such a man's girl, living on a houseboat, drinking whiskey.
Oh, listen, this has been the realm of the ladies since the beginning of time, man.
You must have a really great mother, or who in your life gave you all this confidence, and who gave you the balls, man?
Oh, hey,
really, Dawn. You are amazing. You keep pushing forward. You've had all sorts of shows. You had that venue at a trailer park forever. Like that trailer park venue was so funny. And now you're doing a new podcast called HILF, History I'd Like to Fuck. I mean, you're always moving forward. Tell me, who was your mother? I just need to know this.
Well, my mom is awesome. Her name is Lana Adams. And because she was born and raised in central Wisconsin, it's Lana Adams. That's our people, Lana. And she's a boss mom. I love her entirely, and she is certainly fearless. I wouldn't say, however, that my mother and I are fearless in the same way. She's a little skittish. I mean, she would get nervous about a lot of the stuff that I have done, and she would not do it herself. But I will give her this, and I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and I am moving forward in my mothering with some of this stuff in mind. She really left me alone. And I don't mean she neglected me. I mean, there was a lot of opportunity to fail. There was no judgment on failure. I mean, this is all, of course, looking back on it. I just didn't get a lot of, you better do that right, or you better do that quickly, or you better do that where people think you're great at it, or what happens if you fail. Like, those kinds of things were never instilled in me. And I wasn't ever really reckless, but I've also never really thought I couldn't do something I wanted to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I go, yeah, my parents really helped. That was their deal. They just kind of, yes, and of course you can, was sort of the subtitle.
That's amazing. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have 2 older sisters who are both fantastic.
Isn't that great? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
my oldest,
That's
I have
awesome.
2 older sisters. They're fantastic people, citizens, mothers, wives.
Are they good aunts?
Yeah, they're really good aunts. Yeah.
Your little daughter Beatrice is such a pumpkin. I just want to squeeze her when I see those photos.
Can I tell you about the song that she made up today?
Please tell us.
She's very funny, and she loves making me laugh. And she makes me laugh, genuinely, like belly laugh all the time. Today, she goes, Mom, I have a song for you. And I'm pretty sure she made this up. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what farts are. And then she collapsed in a pile. We both collapsed in a pile of laughing because I was like, that was really funny. And I think she knew Mom would think this was funny, and she ran in saying it was, she's great.
Absolutely.
I love it.
You must be so proud.
So proud.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the sweetest thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, today you bring forth the topic, why I love whiskey. And, just last year, somebody asked me if I would come on their whiskey show. It's like a YouTube whiskey, taste whiskey or whatever. And they said they needed a girl. They didn't have enough females. And, oh, you have a good personality, Christine. Will you come on? And right away I said, oh, yeah, sure, definitely. And then I started thinking about it like, wait a minute. I hate whiskey, and if I even sip it, I'm going to be cringing, and like I can't possibly give this guy any kind of positive reinforcement on his show because I won't be able to drink it.
Do you not like whiskey specifically, or is it like any kind of strong alcohol you don't like the burn?
Any kind of strong alcohol. Like I drink wine and beer.
Yeah.
And I just, the taste of it, it feels like you're sipping gasoline or something that is very, very wrong. Like something you got from under the sink and it had like a green poison sticker on it. Like, what are you doing? This should not be in my mouth.
I couldn't,
you know what I mean?
I couldn't disagree with you more. I salivate for it like it's a cookie.
Oh my God!
And I'm not a drunk. I mean, I'm not a drunk, but
you're a sailor.
I'm a sailor.
You're a sailor.
But no, I have often, if ever I demonstrate temperance or any kind of good judgment when it comes to alcohol, it is only because I cannot abide the thought of having to give it up forever. Like the only thing, you know what I mean? Honestly, the only thing that keeps me sober enough is thinking that I would have to go through the hell of total sobriety.
That's right. I say that all the time. I love alcohol so much. I don't want to stop drinking, so I better watch my drinking.
Totally. I love it like a good girlfriend, where I'm like, you gotta be good to it or to leave you.
Okay, no, I'm excited to hear the story why I love whiskey. But to me, it's like, when did you first get a taste for that? Like, who said, oh, you'll love this? I mean, who told you that?
I think, again, let's hear it for the good parenting from Jim and Lana on my part. I remember my dad's favorite drink is a Manhattan, which if you're not a big fan of strong liquor, you may not. It's a booze drink. It's a very Wisconsin drink in the sense that it's a cocktail that's all alcohol.
Except there's a cherry in it, right?
There's a cherry in it, yeah. So it's whiskey, the way that we like it, the way that I like it, is whiskey, sweet vermouth, dry vermouth, and a cherry and ice, of course. And that shit burns, girl. I mean, that burns an adult who's been drinking their whole lives. But when we were little, as you often do, you're like, may I have a sip of your, drink? And he would always say yes. I mean, horrible. Much like my friend Christine. This is awful. I will never drink this stuff. It's so terrible. But not forever. And there was that day where that tingle. As a matter of fact, I just had a guest on HILF, who is a bartender who named Rashid Green, who made me fabulous colonial era cocktails. And he was telling me that scientifically, your body recognizes the first time that you feel the burn of alcohol, but then feel the sort of chill of the alcohol feeling. Your body registers that. And the next time that you drink alcohol and it feels the burn, your body's like, oh, but hang on, you're about to get that good feeling. Wow. And so your body literally learns to like alcohol.
Wow. That's
Which
so
I have to imagine
interesting.
that happens with coffee, too, because my first drink of coffee was no picnic. My first drag of a cigarette, I thought, I'm never going to do this again. How wrong.
Well, it is an interesting, like I went down to the Improv last week, my friend Abby Shackner, and I said, do you want to get something to drink? She goes, yeah. And I said, okay, I'll have a, 805 a beer. And she goes, I'll have an old fashioned. And I turned to her, I said, what the fuck did you just order? She said, an old fashioned. I said, what, are we at a wedding reception?
Come on, leave her alone.
I know, but what are you going to get, an amaretto sour? I mean, what is this?
Do you want to know what? My husband and I have an inside joke. Yeah. No, this is, you can try this, see what he says. Where our code word for a hand job is an old fashioned. So, what do you think? Maybe we stop on the way home and have an old fashioned. And you always have to be like, what do you mean?
That's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is an old fashioned because it's like as old school as you get, a hand job.
Nobody's saying no to a hand job, but that's...
Nobody's saying no to that.
We've been married for 12 years. Good for you. This is kind of old fashioned.
Yeah, I mean, what else could that be called? Do you want a Shirley Temple? I mean,
that's something entirely different. Really that's when you stick the pinky and never mind. Well, I'll send you some illustrations. That's the Shirley Temple girl.
I am very excited about your new podcast, like we talked about. It's called HILF, and you talk about history. You do. Well, I was on your show for sure. No, but you do because you're smart and you have all smart and intelligent people on your show. But I find it fascinating because it's the way you talk about history because of your passion. There is no subject that is not interesting because you're interested. Mm-hmm. And you've already covered, a lot of history that people might think they know, but then they don't know. Like you already covered John Dillinger, D.B. Cooper, Krampus, which is like upsetting. Krampus was like a devil. Cool? I don't know, with the devil Santa Claus. It's like a devil. It's the worst. And then you also covered Frankenstein and you covered pirates. And then when I was on your show, we talked about freaks and all of these subjects. Like, especially for kids, if they would see like, I have to learn about freaks or Frankenstein or whatever, they might be interested in those subjects. But I'm just saying the way you describe it, it's so interesting. And I highly recommend that my audience, listens to HILF. And like I said, you can go through, all the episodes are evergreen. You can go through the episodes and what do you want to learn about? Like, I didn't know anything about Krampus. I didn't know much about John Dillinger. So it's really fun to listen to your show and listen to your passion about each subject. How do you choose each subject? I mean, you could go on forever.
Thank you so much for saying so. And you know what? I strive. My goal for the podcast is to do exactly what you just described, which is to get any subject is appealing if you find it interesting and appealing. And so I have a list, as long as my arm, of historical subjects that I've researched, that I've books on that I thought were really fascinating. But what I generally do with the show is I invite my guests to assign me a subject. So sometimes I'm like, hey man, I'd like, I just read this book on the Elephant Man and I think that this would be a great episode where you sit down and let me talk your ear off for an hour about this dope thing I just read, right? Or I invite guests on and I say, you tell me, and then, and this is one of my favorite things, they assign me subjects. Sometimes I know nothing and I start from scratch. I get the book, I watch a couple of documentaries, and then I suss out the stuff that is perhaps the most surprising, the most fuckable, and that's what I deliver.
Right, and the stuff that most people don't know right offhand. Mm-hmm.
Or you knew it, but you didn't quite know it.
Yeah, were you a history major?
I was a history minor. I was a theater major and a history minor. And ultimately, in order for me to get my degree in both, to be registered within the history department as a scholar within their department, I had to bust my ass trying to kind of combine these two things. And one of the things I found since I've graduated is I've rarely ever done one without the other. most of my historical performance stuff has a toe, sometimes a whole leg hanging out in the history department, And whenever I'm doing history, of course, there's an element of performance and writing and theatricality. So I find them sort of inseparable.
Well, that's the way to learn history. I mean, I'm telling you, if I have to learn something that in my mind is dull, if to hear it from somebody who's excited about it, it just changes and it means all the difference in the world. Now, let me ask you, if somebody said to you, I want to learn about John F. Kennedy's death, would you delve into that? Is that far enough back?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. I do, give me the history of coronavirus. You know what I mean?
Really?
I think that's the beautiful thing, Christine, is that history includes this morning.
Oh, my God. That hurts my head.
I mean, I do find, though, that depending, and sometimes distance just gives you more perspective. So something like JFK's assassination, I mean, we have endless videos. We have hundreds of documentaries. We have tons of books, which means a subject like that is more about finding your angle. What are you going to do? A play-by-play of the day he got shot? Are you going to do all of the suspected theories about who did it? Are you going to do what ifs? What he was doing in his presidency and what was stopped because of his? And I only have an hour. You know what I mean? So I often start with, what do I find the most interesting? What do I think is the most intriguing, and then what does my guest want to know, and I go from there.
I think the history should have a little space between it, just because every day we're still bombarded with coronavirus stuff, and now everybody knows more about the Ukraine and Putin than we ever wanted to know. So that stuff, that history is so close that it's not, I don't know, but I think going back a little bit further, I would like to hear about the Clinton-Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Ooh,
that would be a good one.
That's a good one.
That's close history, but it's juicy history. I like
Great
that.
One.
Let me think what else I want to talk about with you on history.
Watergate is also great.
That would be fun to listen about Watergate. Exactly. All that stuff that was so boring when I was a kid. Now, if I'm told in the correct context, I know I would like it.
Yeah, right. And I think that we all know that, right? Because a lot of folks have that moment they remember in history class.
Yeah.
Where they maybe even saw a glimmer of this is really interesting. I want to know more about that. Or I saw it in a movie.
Yeah.
And I want to ask my history teacher where the movie squares with the real deal, but you don't want to sound like a nerd who's interested in history all of a sudden. Or you have a bad history teacher that's movies suck and that's not the real history and get away from that stuff. Instead of seeing films as a real access point to history for a lot of people.
Oh, definitely. It's just another thing in the whole vernacular. I mean, just to pick out whether it's a documentary or a film or an article, or I do that with podcast guests. I try to reach and look into them, even the tiny interviews they did and stuff like that, to get a feel of the person. Did I tell you that, I have 4 sisters and a brother, and my brother was so into history that he used to have a paper route, and with the money he made in his paper route, he'd buy ice cream. And then he would force my sister and I to sit in his room and listen to him read about the Civil War for 15 minutes, and then we would get a bowl of ice cream. And
where does he live? What's his number? How tall is he?
He's so handsome too. My brother's so handsome. But
he gave you ice cream and he talked to you about history?
But we would have to sit there and he's like, who marched into Atlanta? Where was Sherman? And I'm like, God, more people died in Gettysburg than any other battle. And then we'd finally get our ice cream. And, my brother was just so into the wars,
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. Some people are just into wars in history.
Well, wars, certainly traditionally, I maybe still, I'm less kind of keyed into exactly how this pivotal stuff works, and I think it's more covert, but they were such turning points. I mean, rarely outside of big war battles can you be well, this guy wanted this thing, and this guy wanted this thing, and nobody knew what was going to happen until they duped it out on a field. And so it's always very intriguing to be able to put your finger on a day in a field and do they have enough horses? And then just like in sports, those wild upsets where you had the biggest cavalry or the largest navy and the most sophisticated military head into what they expected to be an obvious victory, and there is an unexpected defeat. I mean, this is why wars are exciting for the same reason everything with two forces colliding for an outcome are going to be intriguing for us. And I think maybe especially men, because of the way that we've shared this narrative and the way that they're raised, but I think all human beings, when they hear about war, especially when it's really like detailed and explained, we can't help but feel that surge of empathy that is, holy fuck, right? Especially like when you watch Revolutionary War soldiers, where they had to fucking line up shoulder to shoulder and just take all that time to load your bullet one at a time while the other side is loading their bullets, and just stand there and walk forward being like, this is gonna hurt, this is gonna hurt. Like, fuck.
Jesus.
You know, I mean, I think,
God.
I don't know how you look at that and aren't completely intrigued, you know, and horrified.
Right, now
because why do we keep doing this to each other?
Let's talk about, I know. Why does history keep repeating itself? Let's talk about Custer and the Battle at Little Bighorn.
Okay. But you're exactly right. Unexpected.
I know, because my brother would say, like, okay, so then he brought his soldiers and they flanked on this side and they brought this column down and they came on this side and then they just squeezed the city and they took it over. And I think, like, oh my God, that's what's happening in Mariupol. I mean, it's so sad.
Oh, yes.
It's the same tactics.
It is. And you're exactly right. And if there is any comfort, and I don't know if there is, it's the same. It's that you just truly never know. And you're right. There's somebody standing over a table with a map and a bunch of moving pieces, whether they're virtual or digital or physical or whatever, and they're deciding from what angle to approach and with how many forces, and, you know, air force versus ground force, and they're doing math. How many people can we lose? How many people do we want them to lose? And everyone's doing their own deal. And yeah, it's horrible, timeless human behavior.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah. And you look at, they say that Putin, he could care less how many troops die. He does not care if he loses 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. He doesn't even see them as human beings.
I think it's just such a painful fucking thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't know. War sucks no matter what, right? And I think that sometimes we have elegant approaches, and sometimes we have more sophisticated leaders, but it's always just a bloody, awful, terrible endeavor. And I think you're right. I think Putin's especially brutal and maybe particularly fucked, but I don't think that there is a gentle hand that wins a war. And I think that all generals that go into war know that. Yes.
Dawn, isn't it interesting that you talk about history and the times that we're living in? We saw 9/11. We saw the pandemic. We saw the insurrection. And now we're going to watch World War III, because I kind of think it already started.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. And do you want to know what's even more intriguing, Christine, is that's kind of small potatoes for a lifetime. It's not that long. It's not that bad, actually. I mean, if you look at someone who was born in 1900... You know, they saw the Spanish flu, World War I, World War II, Prohibition, the Great Depression. I mean, the Dust Bowl. I mean, we're fucking lucky. And that was still given birth in a barn with no painkillers. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's not forget, dude, that even if
no mani-pedis, nothing.
And birth control, hi.
Dawn, let's have you do a HILF on the Dust Bowl days. I think that would be very interesting. Really.
Oh, it's a great idea.
What a crazy event. And it wasn't that just like a one-shot event, that kind of dust storm that came or whatever?
No, it was a whole time. You know, it was a result of mismanagement. I mean, you know, we had, of course, the Irish immigrants that came to the United States in a way. We're here because of a potato famine. And the potato famine was manufactured. I mean, they didn't intend to have a potato famine. But part of the reason why that happened was because the powers that be in Ireland demanded that every single person who owned land turned to their fields and grew nothing but potatoes, because they were the potato expert. You know, that was their fucking deal. And so there was no diversity of crops. There was no farmer had the ability to grow anything else or manage their land in any other way. And so when there was a potato, something happened to the potatoes, it fucked Ireland and everything died. They had no diversity, you know, and they were like, and we look at history like, why didn't they eat something else? And you're like, well, because they got shot if they grew something different in their fields, because they were under orders, you know what I mean? And in the United States, for a lot of these Western lands, lands in the 1930s, the federal government was ordering everyone to run their lands a certain way. You couldn't have tree lines. You couldn't waste, if the bank owned your land, if you had a lien from the bank told you how to make that land that you owned the most profitable, which means you had to do what they said. And so you have all these fucking people don't plant any trees and don't do the thing you're supposed to do with the topsoil and all the good farming because it's just profit. And they ruined the land. And so the normal course of the environment, the wind came through as it usually did, and the rain came through as it usually did. And there was a small drought, but it was utterly devastating because we were too fucking dumb to look slightly ahead of our skis. But your reaction, Christine, is often what we miss in history class, which is, you think, oh, that must have been hard on those guys. They were just doing their best, and then we had a big windstorm or something. And you're like, no, this was not unpredictable. And the poor and the vulnerable were utterly devastated, while the rich went, oh, I guess I accidentally made too much money. Oops. I guess I'll try not to make so much money next time. I learned my lesson. And that it coincided with the Great Depression and in between two world wars.
Oh, my God. Dawn, did you ever want to be a professor or teach?
I have taught. I actually thought about that when I was in school studying history. I thought, what the fuck do you do with all this information?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not teaching it or writing books, what the fuck are you supposed to do when you just know all this stuff? And I thought about it. I have a passion for teaching. I have no passion for education. The education system. And I am an excellent guest speaker in your classroom. And I have done that extensively. Folks I know in the education system who are very passionate about the education system. And I have often, I go into high schools, middle schools, and they say, Dawn, take the hour and tell my kids about Prohibition. And they'll close the door and be like, she might say, fuck, everybody, buckle up. And
they pay you, right? They better pay you.
They pay me, or it is my goodwill to help the younger people.
But a lot of high schools and stuff, they have stipends for guest speakers
and stuff. And
so
some do, but some don't. Yeah. And that's okay too.
Yeah. You're very sweet. That's really kind. All right, well, let's get over to your story here in just a second. But I wanted to remind everybody that Story Smash, the storytelling game show, is going strong at the Hollywood Improv. The next show is Saturday, April 23rd. It's Saturday night, 7:30. Head over to storysmashshow.com for more information and to get tickets. And, of course, follow Story Smash on Instagram at Story Smash. Dawn, have you not won every time you've played Story Smash? Do you win every time?
Oh, bless you. I love this show so much.
How many times have you won?
I've won 4 times, maybe 5 times. I did not.
Get the fuck out.
Really? But I didn't listen. My heart is broken. No, I didn't win every time, Christine, because Zoom. I didn't win in Zoom.
The Zoom thing was hard.
The Zoom thing was hard.
You couldn't get your full personality in there, The thing is, on stage at the Improv, you get to bound on stage in any way you want. Like, we love you. In the first 15 seconds, we see you and you didn't even open your mouth. We love you. And so, on Zoom, you couldn't really get that across. It's true.
And you know what? It was such a weird time. You know what I mean?
I know.
I think sometimes when you're trying to think of a story in a moment and you're in a room full of people buzzing with energy, you get really excited when you're sitting in your stupid room that you've been stuck in for the last year and a half. You're like, here's a story about a blanket that I'm looking at.
But right. This is a bear. I look at a bear.
Do you guys have beds? All right, here's a story about my bed. Oh, no.
Do you have pants?
Yeah.
I have pants.
So one time I was laying in bed in my pants, and oh no, and then you're like, I have 57 seconds left. I don't know what I'm going to do with this story.
It's like I haven't been outside in 3 weeks.
Please, God. Here's a story about a girl who ate her own hand while just sitting in the dark by herself.
You make me laugh so hard. You'll have to come on Story Smash again.
Okay,
yes, you haven't been on since we came back,
no,
right?
No, please, I can't wait.
Okay. I'll get you on this spring for sure.
Oh, good.
All right, you guys. She's here right now, Dawn Brodey. Oh, I love her to death. She is such a talented person. She's an actress and a comedian and a podcaster, like we said. Her new show, HILF, History I'd Like to Fuck, is just so good. Please listen to it, you guys, wherever you hear your podcasts. And especially if you have a kid who has to learn something about history, this is the show they should listen to because they'll actually learn, honestly.
Yes, I will teach them, whether they like it or not, they'll retain it.
Honestly, they will, because it's a story. You tell things in a story fashion, and we remember stories. Yes, of course. All right, you guys, you can check out Dawn over at our website, dawnbrodey.com, and also follow her on Twitter at Dawn_Brodey. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Dawn Brodey.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, everyone. What a kind reception. Hi. Okay, so this is among the reasons I love whiskey, is because of the story of the Whiskey Rebellion. And this took place in the first years of America. So for those of you who are a little rusty, 1776, we signed the Declaration of Independence. We don't, quote unquote, win until 1783. And we don't ratify the Constitution until 1789, which means there's like this 5-6 year span where we're independent from England, but we haven't established our own government yet. That's when we're like the Confederacy. And then when we finally sign the Constitution, we're like, all right. We're a country, girl. Like we decide how things go. One of the first things we realized is we had huge debt and no ability to pay our debt or to generally make any money to expand. And we had a lot of expansion in mind. And it's kind of tricky to suddenly leverage taxes on a population of people that just fought and won an unlikely war based solely on the fact that they think taxes suck, right? So Alexander Hamilton, your new best friend and mine, in the room where it happened, has this boffo idea, right? He's like, I know where we can get the money, guys. I know what we can tax, won't piss anybody off. Whiskey, because it's a vice. So people will be like, yeah, it's a sin. I should probably pay taxes on it. And it's a luxury, right? So it won't probably impact the poor people. I think this is a great idea. He asked like his 5 friends. Don't you guys think it's a great idea? It's a terrible idea, Christine. It's a terrible idea.
Wait,
tax.
seriously?
Because the people, I know, you and me are like, it makes sense. Listen to me. It's a terrible idea. I mean, all taxes piss somebody off, right? But Western Pennsylvania, in particular, which at the time is... Oh, then you'll know all about these people. Oh, girl, I got a story. Girl, Pittsburgh is in this story, girl.
Oh, my God.
So Western Pennsylvania is the Wild West. You know what I mean? It's about as far west as we can imagine anything being, and it's the wild frontier.
Oh, I see.
So,
that's funny.
You know what I mean? Right? So the people, and they feel in Western Pennsylvania that they couldn't be further away from D.C. and the elite and the cities
coast.
And the coast, exactly. And these fucks are like, I'm sorry, you're going to tax what? To tax whiskey on them is devastating because, one, it's their currency out there. It's hard to get hard currency, bills and coins. So whiskey doesn't go bad. It's how they trade things. It's like if you find a suitcase full of cocaine. Whether or not you do cocaine, you're like, oh, this is valuable. This has value to people out there. And it doesn't rot and all that. And it was a way for them to make money with their excess grain at the end of the year. Also, this tax heavily disfavored them because the folks on the East Coast had huge sills. They made tons of whiskey, and you had a choice to pay the tax with either a flat tax or by the gallon. And they were like, we're just going to be, and they were like, you have to register your sill, which for a lot of these folks in Western Pennsylvania is a 300-mile ride to get to Pittsburgh, right? Or to get to wherever they had to register it.
Yeah.
So they were like, fuck you. So 3 years later, the government is looking around and they're like, girl, they're not paying these taxes. Like, we're looking at the spreadsheets here. We're not getting nothing from these fucks. So they send some tax collectors out there to get it. Okay. First guy that comes down, word starts to spread. There's a guy here to get our whiskey tax. A bunch of dudes dress up like women, stand by the side of the road, wait for him to slow down, jump him, steal his horse, beat the shit out of him, and then tar and feather him.
Oh my God.
Horrible. Which, if you don't know about tar and feathering, like, brutal.
Why would they do that?
Boiling hot tar in your skin, because they ain't gonna pay those taxes, girl. It gets better.
But they killed them then. If you're tar and feathered, you're killed.
Only 1 or 2 people actually died as a result of it. It's just fucking awful. It's boiling hot tar in your skin, and then the feathers itch, and you itch the feathers, which means you push them into your skin. I mean, it's tar and feathers. Right. Yeah,
how do you get it off of you?
Your skin has to come off with it. It takes weeks. It's awful. It's awful. And it's supposed to be humiliating, too. You can't sleep in your sheets and you stink and it's awful. So it's not supposed to kill you, but it is supposed to make you suffer and not want to come on back into these woods anytime soon.
Effective, for sure.
Right. So the government, the central government at this point, Alexander Hamilton, George Washington are like, shit. we can't have that. So they send another guy out there, same thing. They beat the shit out of him, they tie him to a tree. They don't kill him, but he doesn't have a great time. So then they're like, fuck, all right, let's try this again. So they officially make some subpoenas, so it's all official, whatever. And they send out a U.S. Marshal named David Lennox. This guy's tough as nails. He's going to go out there and let them know, you guys got to start paying these whiskey taxes. They're like, you probably want a guide, like a friendly local guide to walk you around. So they recommend that he meets up with this local guy named Neville, who's a rich landowner, also makes whiskey. He'll probably ease your way. What they don't know, Christine, is Neville was a terrible choice because the other locals fucking hate this guy. Because he's a rich landowner who makes whiskey too. And so of course he's happy with this tax. They're going to get screwed. This is more of a class war thing, right? So once they catch wind that this rich Neville guy has this tax collector U.S. Marshal at his house, they go to his house. And like 50 angry dudes. And they're like, come on out. We want to fight.
Oh, my God.
And they back and forth. Neville, because David Lennox, by the way, he's gone. He's actually left because he kind of was like, they don't like us. Neville gets so intimidated, he fires into the crowd and kills a guy.
Jesus.
A guy named Oliver Miller in the crowd, and they take his body and they leave. Neville's like, I'm fucked, because they're going to come back. He gets some soldiers he knows. His brother-in-law is a guy nearby, and he's like, you guys come guard my house. I got to hide. These guys are coming back. And they do. And now these 10 soldiers and this general are in Neville's house, and 600 guys who are pissed off come up with their torches, and they're mad, and it's led by a Revolutionary War general, a former veteran of the Revolutionary War named McFarland. Fight, back and forth, bullets, screaming. McFarland gets fucking shot and killed. The enslaved people from Neville's house are coming out fighting. Ultimately, they're like, fuck, and they burn his house down and they leave.
Oh my
with
God.
McFarland dead. Okay, now, they are so angry now at this point. McFarland's dead. A new guy comes to the head of the angry mob and is like, let's keep this momentum going. And they go to your hometown. They go to Pittsburgh. Get this number. 7,000 dudes follow this guy Bradford to Pittsburgh. They're pissed off. They're just mad. And now at this point, like, it's not even the whiskey tax. They're kind of like French Revolution mad. Like they're kind of talking, like maybe they just want to pull rich people out of their houses and kill them, but it also has to do with taxes. It's kind of vague, but they're mad and they're coming to Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, girl, let me tell you about your people. I've never been to Pittsburgh. I don't know what I would do if 7,000 angry people came to my city's gates, right? But they steal the mail. The mob steals the mail coming and going and select, because of all the mail that they've stolen and read, that these 3 individuals in the city of Pittsburgh need to come out. There's 3 guys that they're after. Pittsburgh says, oh, I know, we hate them too. They're gone. We've banished them. They have been exiled, so don't worry about them. But now you guys are here. How about we bring you 7 barrels of whiskey? Again, you would think bringing 7 barrels of whiskey to an angry mob wouldn't be a great idea, but these 7,000 guys, they love it. And then Pittsburgh is like, yeah, and you guys had this whiskey, you came all this way. How about this? I have an idea. Why don't you guys come on through town as a parade? Come in a parade. Tell everybody how badass you are. Wave your arms, bang drums, and then you go right through the middle of town. And when you get to the end of the town, just turn right and go on home. Okay? And they do. Fucking Pittsburgh is like, girl, we know how to handle an angry mob. Like, you just give them whiskey, welcome them in, show them the way out, and then they go home. Yeah. So, like, I don't know how Pittsburgh managed. Like, there was no damage. They didn't kill anybody. They didn't cause a riot. They just drank their whiskey, had a parade, and went home. But this, of course, can't stand. And the central government is like, what the fuck? So George Washington himself.
Your boyfriend.
And you know how I feel about General George Washington. He is my boyfriend, girl. He put on his uniform. Ooh, he, like, polished up his buttons. Oh. And he got a bunch of troops together, and he's like, look, it sounds like we have to go crack some skulls. I didn't want to do this, but looks like we're gonna do it. And everybody loves George Washington, Christine. Everybody loves him, and I mean it. Everybody loves him. All the political sides, and even if they don't love him, they know that the love for him is so huge that their dislike of him doesn't matter. So, like, everyone listens to him, and everyone respects him. And so when he comes with the military, right, and he rides in to town, right, this big rebellion, these 7,000 guys have been doing everything, they're gone. Oh. He gets into town. There's no riot. There's no dudes. There are a couple of guys they kind of found, and they slapped him on the wrist and sent him home. And guess what? No more whiskey rebellion, because our Uncle George decided to polish up his buttons and ride into town. But I want to tell you something. The moral of the story could be then, if you really wanted to close the history book there and say, all right, here's the moral of the story. If you have strong leaders that demonstrate powerful moves at the right time and in the right places, it can really smooth the ripples of a historical revolution. But if you open that history book back up, keep reading a little bit, they never started paying those taxes. It wasn't they were like, yes, General Washington, our check is in the mail. There wasn't a fight. There wasn't open warfare. They also never started paying those taxes. And when Jefferson was elected, he just abolished the tax. And if you look, because you had mentioned, what is history, isn't that modern history? You and I are deeply entrenched in a political debate between two sides that are still, generally speaking, holding on tight to the questions that happened in that Whiskey Rebellion.
Wow.
How much power does the federal government have?
Yeah.
How much power should they have?
Yeah.
And if they exercise that power, how far do they go and to what end? And we just keep, so I think the moral of the story is, pay your taxes. Or don't.
Yeah.
Just don't. And if you're not going to do it, just don't do it, because apparently it doesn't matter.
Where did we get the whiskey? Where did those people get the whiskey? Did they bring it from England, or did they start growing their own barley and whatever?
And that is exactly the point. They were manufacturing it all themselves, which is why the tax was so devastating. Because we had already figured out some ways to tax imports and exports. Mm-hmm. But we were trying to figure out how to get a stable tax base from inside, right? We didn't have an income tax yet. And there was, trying to figure out how to do this. And so they thought, well, this is great because you own the land, you raise the wheat, the barley, the hops, whatever it is you're distilling, right? And then you have your still and you make it yourself, and you use our roads to distribute your alcohol, and you're using our currency to profit from our alcohol, and using our bank system to invest the money you make. So this should be taxed because it's going to help support the system that continues to make you money. Right. But people are like, yeah, no, because I'm used to just making the profit. And now what you're saying is you're just going to take some of that.
Right. Of course. Yeah, of course.
Right?
It doesn't. Right. Yeah, you wouldn't want that.
But no, the whiskey came domestically. Yeah.
Was the whiskey just like one kind? It's just hard like moonshine or whatever. Was it one kind, or were there various kinds then?
Yeah, I think there would have been various kinds then to suit your palate and to accommodate what you had. I suppose some folks may have had a certain kind of soil or a certain kind of wood, in their barrel, or a certain water source or a certain grain that probably changed it. I'm sure there were probably some preference that people liked a certain kind of whiskey because of how it was made. However, I think a lot of people, it's like, remember when you bought weed before it was legal? And you'd be like, is this dope?
I know.
And they'd be like, yep, that's dope. And then you'd buy it. I think it was similar with whiskey. You'd be like, is this whiskey?
Yeah.
Yep.
I always said that, like, when I was a kid, I smoked a lot of grass. And when I say grass, I mean, it was grass. Like,
grass.
No. Or,
Dandelion? What is this?
Seeds in there. You'd be shaking it down with a shoebox. What is a sill? Is that a container? A sill?
It is the machine, I guess, for lack of a better word, that creates the whiskey from it's the, let's see, what's a better way to say it? It is the way that you transform your raw materials into whiskey. So my understanding is that it's what combines the heat and the hot water and the way that the grain is then processed and fermented to produce whiskey. So it's kind of like a beaker. It's sort of like how you make meth. I don't think it looks terribly different.
If they say grain alcohol, they're talking about grain. It comes from grain. That's the idea.
Yeah. And I think that the way that grain alcohol ferments and how it's stored is why you would care, and how drunk it gets you. It's strong. Historically, it's strong.
Okay. Do you ever like that beverage called Jack Daniels? Have you ever had that?
I have.
Do you like that?
I enjoy it. Really? I do enjoy Jack Daniels. Yeah, Kentucky.
Okay, let me tell you. Last year, I'm in Nashville for this conference, and Jack Daniels is like hosting the happy hour party or whatever. So it's all free Jack Daniels drinks. And I remember walking in, and there were probably 300 people there. And on every table were just these glasses. They were all like half full or even almost full. Like they were passing out all this Jack Daniels, and nobody was drinking it. Like it was so, I remember sipping it, and it was so foul. I was like, this is the most disgusting. And nobody was drinking it. Like the whole party. Nobody wanted it. Everybody just had bottles of beer and all that stupid Jack Daniels. It was just filthy all over the tables because nobody would drink it.
I would have made that worth their while. Yeah. I like Jack Daniels.
What is your favorite whiskey?
I it's rare for me to sip a whiskey I don't like. So I would have been very happy at this party. I would have walked table to table just taking care of all that Jack Daniels. But my favorite at the moment is a Bullet Rye whiskey. Oh, it is. Bullet is the brand.
Bullet,
Bullet is the brand, and a rye whiskey is a style. Lots of different brands make it. It's just generally a little drier, and sometimes it can have a little bit more of like a smoky burn. Ooh, Mama likes. Mama likes. Ooh, I love that shit. Do you see what I mean? I'm salivating right now like it's cheesecake.
I see that. I just don't. I wish I kind of wish I had that. Howard Stern on the show was just talking about getting Gary a bottle of $560 scotch. What is a $560 bottle of scotch? What is that? And would you actually, if you taste that, would you be able to say, oh yeah, that's money?
Do you know, I'm grateful to have an answer for you. I have spent a lot of time in Scotland. If you want to talk about a story, that's a story. I briefly was married when I was 19 to a guy I met in the Highlands of Scotland. And I think my love of Scotch may have played some role in that. We went to a lot of distilleries while we were there, and I learned about single and blended Scotch.
I see.
And the way that we saw these distilleries, and I thought, I don't know the difference. I feel the burn. I'm 19. I'm just guzzling this stuff on a bus. What's the difference? But then they took their time. They slowed down and they took their time. They said, no, you slut. Slow down and taste what we're doing here. And he said, now this, and they passed, so they had a bottle, they passed the bottle around, they said, this is single malt. All right, and they explain how that changes in the distill and how it works. And I tasted it, I let it roll over my tongue. I thought about it for a moment. And then they passed the other bottle around, which was the blended, and I absolutely tasted the difference. Wow. I understood the complexity, and I kind of got it in that moment, and I've understood that. So I think if somebody gave me a taste test and said one of these two is $560 worth,
you would know.
I like to think I would know the difference. I would like to take, but I would take that challenge.
The single is more expensive than the blended.
Generally, yes. I can't think of what, certainly if it's from the same, It's like a wine. It's like a wine that blended lots of grapes,
And that was and we're going to wrap it up here, but that was my next sentence. Are you like a total wine snob, or that's just nothing to you?
I'm not a wine snob, not like I am with whiskey. I worked in a restaurant for a while where I had to learn some of the nuance of pairings and wines and stuff. And so I have some vocabulary for it, but no, never as much. And I like wine, but now I'm 43, girl, and something happened. I have 2 or 3 glasses of red wine, and it's a rough road for me the next day.
I know, me too. It's you get tired so fast.
Ugh.
Listen, I got one more thing to tell you, and I know you're going to be a little jealous, and I just say, hold back. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
I went to Washington Elementary for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and George Washington slept on our playground. Oh, yeah. George Washington slept on the playground, and that's why it was called Washington High School. I mean, Washington Elementary.
Well, what did, Martha kicked him out, and he made
I don't know. But now I'll never think of Washington Elementary where I did my, I went there when I was 5, 6. I'll never forget that. Boy, oh boy, you would have killed to have gone there.
I would have gone. My daughter's middle name is Washington.
Oh, come
Beatrice Washington Melby.
Mm-hmm. I did not know you named your daughter middle name. Wow. That is going to be quite a story for her to tell friends.
People say, what is your mom? She'll be like, my mom's a mess. That's my name. My mom's a mess.
My daughter's middle name is Blackburn. Because I'm like, I'm getting in there. Yeah. I'm getting in there.
Yeah, girl.
Part of that name.
Yeah,
got
smart,
that right.
Smart.
You guys definitely check out Dawn Brodey's new show, HILF. I'm telling you, it's just fascinating the way you explain history. It makes it so palatable. Is that the word? Palatable. Palatable. And it's just, you're a blast. I really admire you, and I appreciate you, and I definitely will get you on Story Smash here very soon. And I'm just so glad you're in my life, Dawn Brodey.
Oh, Christine, back at you, girl. You are an inspiration.
Thanks.
You're a powerhouse, and I am so delighted whenever I can come along for one of your wild adventures.
Yay. All right, you guys, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure you check out Dawn over at our website, dawnbrodey.com, and also find her on Twitter at Dawn_Brodey. And one more time, on behalf of the very talented Dawn Brodey, my name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a story-worthy week.
for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.
New message.
Hey, man, it's Devin. You know, from that time you accidentally emailed me because you thought I was a different Devin. Oh, and your email signature said, confidential. If you receive this in error, please delete. That's so you. Anyway, I heard you bought a boat. When are we setting sail, Captain?
When you get a boat, you also get new friends. Make sure Progressive's one of them and get coverage today for as little as $100 a year.
Oh, and no, you did not receive this message in error.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Annual premium for basic liability policy not available in all states.
Membership fees apply after free trial. Cancel anytime.
Hi, it's Carl Deichler, CEO of Beachbody, and I'm giving away 10,000 free memberships a week to try our amazing Beachbody fitness and nutrition programs. Pick any program and just follow it step by step, like our 21-day fix program or the ab shredding muscle burns fat program. Plus, there's free support in personalized fitness groups with our community of over 2 million members. Now is the time, so don't wait. Go to beachbody.com to claim your free membership and start feeling great.